Welcome to the Covenant Eyes podcast. Karen Potter, your host, and I am so excited to be with you today. We've got a longtime friend joining us, Dr. Doug Weiss, who is a psychologist, and he's the founder of Heart to Heart counseling centers, where he specializes in treating sexual addicts and their spouses. He also provides top-in-class intensives for people all across the globe. He's authored more than 40 books and has 30 therapeutic DVDs for men, women, and marriages. He's been an expert on shows such as Oprah, Dr. Phil, Good Morning America, and he's joining the Covenant Eyes podcast today. We are so excited to have him. He also has a great show on Daystar that we would encourage you to check out. It's called Healing Time Ministries. In addition, when he has free time, which I can't believe he does, he is the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. And he also is a certified sexual recovery therapist and partners recovery therapist as well. The list goes on and on. We are so excited to have Dr. Doug Weiss joining the program today. Stay tuned for this amazing episode.
Well, our guest today is a longtime friend of Covenant Eyes, somebody that we know well, and I'm sure our listeners know well. But Dr. Doug Weiss, welcome to Covenant Eyes podcast.
Well, it's so good to be back again, and thank you, Rob and Karen. I love you guys. I love what you're doing for everyone who has your service. So, even my kids had Covenant Eyes on their phones growing up, okay? So I'm a fan.
Love that.
Appreciate
growing
that.
up the Covenant Eyes way. Our kids growing up that way is so healthy and so good.
Well, Dr. Weiss, for a few of our listeners who might not know who you are, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Sure. Well, let me tell you the testimony that I have, which is, I was conceived in adultery. I was sexually abused. I was a full-blown porn sex addict during my adolescence, and then had a radical experience at 19 years old. Alcohol and drugs left, but sex addiction stayed all the way through Bible school. Then I went to seminary, started to get free. And I've been free now, and verifiably free. When I say free, I mean me and my staff at the Heart to Heart Counseling Center, we take a polygraph every year and a half. So every counselor in my organization is actually verifiably clean, not just saying they're clean. So I'll be 40 years clean this summer. Okay, so you can get in free. So then after that, I went to seminary, wrote my first book. We've been on all the way back to Phil Donahue, Oprah, Dr. Phil, Good Morning America, had a movie and a documentary made about our practice. And, it's been a whirlwind. We've written many books, some about recovery. One of the things, partner betrayal trauma, which is something that I founded as well. The research on what happens to a wife is incredible. Hopefully we can get into that at some point. But, we have a counseling center, Heart to Heart Counseling Center in Colorado Springs, and I'm also the founder of Healing Time Ministries, which is a television ministry getting these messages of healing out on Daystar television around the world. So it's been an adventure, but for those who don't know me, there it is. We love you, and we talk about freedom all the time.
We love that. And your work has spanned across several decades, and you've helped so many people. And in that time, you've been working with couples, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how pornography has affected those couples that you've worked with and how it affects marriages and what you've seen in your practice.
Well, let me put it in context. For the last over 30 years, I've been doing 5-day intensives in my office where couples fly in, and we get into the nitty-gritty of their lives. And I'm talking about 5,000 people I've seen over my career. And these women are devastated. The trust is broken in the relationship. They feel unsafe. They feel compared to. They feel confused. Oftentimes they feel like it's been a bait and switch for them because they're usually really good men. They were sold to be really good men, and they didn't tell them they had a secret life. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, they find out about the secret life, be it pornography or inappropriate relationships. And, Karen, when a woman hears this, because in our office, people do polygraphs, right? They have the reaction, anything from curling up in a ball and screaming like a wild animal to staring off in space and being so overwhelmed they can't even process that their world is this. It's trauma in the biggest definition of that word. The PTSD symptoms that a woman has if you take the PTSD symptoms and you go through all that criteria, most of them will have about 80% of them will have those criteria, and most of them will last up to a year. This woman is hit by a 18-wheeler. Okay, you can't see the scars. She's bleeding all over, and she still has to pick up her kids at school, maybe has a job, still goes to church and, and worships Jesus and does what she does with her life, but she's bleeding. And to see these women and the courage that they have to even try to rebuild their marriage, and they do. I mean, over 90% of the women I've worked with have rebuilt their marriages, with the husbands, of course, doing the work of healing and recovery, which includes Covenant Eyes. If you're not on Covenant Eyes, as a client of mine, I'm going to probably ask you some serious questions as to why. Because you need to close the door on those things that hurt your family. It's not just about you as a man. It hurts your family, because as a dad, you're spiritually, emotionally, and morally immature. Okay, you're about 14 years old raising children. You need to be an adult to raise children. And so we definitely incorporate Covenant Eyes into helping people heal, not just their person, but also their marriage. Because then she can track it and she knows what's going on. And it's very helpful for her to know that, maybe we're clean for a while.
Oh, that's excellent. Dr. Doug, during that betrayal time that happens, there is a lack of trust. There's trust broken. You talked about trust with your staff and how you maintain that. In the marriage relationship, when you're talking with all these folks, how do you help them begin to rebuild that trust, and how long does that typically take?
Well, that's a really good question, Rob, because it's unique to every person. But generally speaking, there's two principles here. The one is called believe behavior. So if he's going to a group, he's making phone calls, he's working through the workbooks, that really, the Final Freedom, One-on-One Freedom, all that is a path. It's just like therapy in a box, okay? If he's doing the work, that's one thing that you can believe, what he's proactively doing. Because what I know is people do what they want to do, and they love what they protect, right? And so the second thing is we do polygraphs. We verify at the beginning what the story is, and then quarterly for the first year, and then 6 months. And what that does, I know it sounds a little radical, right? But it's actually in Numbers chapter 5, okay? So we want the wife to be able to trust her husband, and for him to get a year of healing so he's mature enough to actually make good decisions. And it works. It works because we can tell the lady, listen, you don't have to divorce. Okay, you can give him 3 months at a time and see if he can earn your trust back. And usually it doesn't even take a year. She starts trusting him, and they start building relationships. The relationship becomes better than ever, because in the counseling center, we have a triune approach. We want to heal him, heal her, and heal the marriage. And all three can happen simultaneously, as opposed to like sending him off to someplace for a year. He can get better, she can get better, and they can get better. And we see it happen every week. So, I'm looking through my head in the Rolodex of thousands of people who, like, when they came in Monday, they were bludgeoned. On Friday, they were hopeful. And they sent me the email later that our marriage is great. We're loving our family. Thank you, Dr. Weiss, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's exciting to see people heal, but it's possible. So trust can be rebuilt, but he has to do his work, and then she has to do her work. Because he could be, Boy Scout clean, but if she doesn't let down her heart and open it back up, that's her part. And it takes a little while for that to happen once you've been shot by the person who said they would, protect you.
So, you do a lot of counseling, and I know that you've worked with so many couples. And one of the things that I think is most striking when we're talking to people going through pornography addiction in their marriages is that the view of how damaging pornography is differs between the spouses. So sometimes the man cannot necessarily correlate that his pornography use is impacting the wife as substantially as it is, and the wife sees it as detrimental to the marriage. Do you see that differing view of pornography and how it impacts the marriage from a man versus a woman?
You're asking a really pointed question, Karen, so let me parse it a little bit for you. First, the difference isn't always because the difference about the view of pornography. First, as far as him not being able to understand her trauma, that is legit. And we have two products. One's called Helping Her Heal, in which I really help the man understand what he has done to his wife. And literally, I've had guys come back in my office and go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what I've done. The second product is the Partner Betrayal Trauma video or book, where the statistics alone, page after page after page after page after page of before trauma, she was this, after trauma, like before trauma, 26% were depressed. After, 88% were depressed, clinically depressed. That's the result of pornography. Okay. And that's the result that he had on his wife. Okay. The reason there's a disparity is because of his immaturity. Addictions of any type, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, work, anything, rob you of three areas of maturity: spiritual maturity, moral maturity, which is how you make decisions, and emotional maturity. So he's responding like if you found pot in your 13-year-old bedroom. And he's going to say, why are you in my bedroom? Instead of, let's talk about the pot, right? And so in the same way, early in recovery, the man is still immature. And you got to understand that pornography has raised him probably from 8 to 12 years old till now. And it's been his boo-boo mommy, his binky. Okay. And so he doesn't want to necessarily, well, binky can't be bad, right? No, binky's really bad. And it's destructive, not only to her, but to him neurologically, psychologically, physiologically, and in the area of intimacy. It can rob him of so much, because these are the areas I see guys develop. Here's, Rob, you'll like this, you're a guy, and no offense, Karen, but
None taken.
Here's one of the things I see with guys, okay? If they are entrepreneurs, business owners, or self-employed, and a lot of my clients are those, they will literally double or more than double their income in a 12-month period if they stop doing pornography. In 12 months, they double or more than double their income. That is a numerical way of saying there's a lot of change that happens. The self-esteem improves. They can trust their judgment again, and they can be creative again. Because right now, all their creativity is going how to get the secret, manage the secret, do all that. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Imagine that same way spiritually doubling, emotionally doubling, right? And that's what happens when we get off that drug. We become what we're supposed to be, instead of what the drug has made us to be, which is full of secrets and shame and anxiety. And if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. And one of the great things is, when a woman does find out, at least it ends the secret for him. It's awful for her, but it ends the secret for him. I used to call that, my first article I wrote in my whole career was called Clouds and Thunder. When he tells her everything, he's on a pink cloud, he feels great. And she's in the storm, right? Yeah. Because she didn't know. But that's why the discrepancy is there. So it's a little bit more complicated than their view of pornography. For her, it wasn't her best friend growing up. It wasn't where she went to after she was rejected by a boyfriend or girlfriend. It wasn't the place where she went when dad was yelling and screaming at mom. It wasn't a place to help her develop. It was for him a place where he leaned on to get through life. So it was his friend, even though it was hurting him. You see the emotional difference?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. In your counseling with men too, as you're working on addressing the pornography addiction, you talk about all these side effects of, increased work performance and success in other areas, because now you're focused on positive behaviors in those spaces instead of hiding the secret. Do you also incorporate health and wellness and taking care of one's body, mind, and soul
Absolutely.
into your practice? Because I think that's an important piece to it, is it not?
Absolutely, because the neurological imbalance that the addiction causes, it's really helpful to have either creative outlets or physical outlets. But Karen, as a woman, you want to know about the impact. One of the impacts on a woman is the neurological impact. And that's not something that counseling can heal. We have in my office at Heart to Heart, we have a neuromodulation treatment, which you listen to these sounds, and it's a long story to explain the technology. About $50 million went into the technology. But literally by Wednesday, I can see the women's eyes change. Okay, because when you get hit by a truck, literally get hit by an 18-wheeler, okay, you're different. And they're frozen, or they're in fight, or they're in flight. None of those options are helpful for a brain. No. And the brain will stay there stay there until it gets the freedom to be able to heal itself. And that is another part of the demonstratable progress we see, because a woman goes in, she gets her scores, how her brain is on Monday, and they're usually pretty bad. And by Friday, they're totally in a different place. Her brain is more centered and able to be neuroplastic again, which it wasn't capable of doing on Monday because of what he did to her in the trauma. And that's another way that we can measure that trauma is real for these ladies.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. that weight, that burden lifted is, I mean, it's amazing. It's huge. But Dr. Doug, we talk with so many couples here at Covenant Eyes, men, women, couples together, and there is always a reluctance to dive into counseling. And I don't know if that's coming from the church or if that's just a normal reaction from people, but tell us a little bit why counseling and support groups are so important in this process of healing.
Well, let me tell you a funny story, Rob, and then I'll answer your question why support groups are important. So when I was in Bible school, I got radically saved, right? So when I went to Bible school, in the first quarter, you had to take a psychology course. Well, I went up to the dean of students who became president later, and I said, listen, I'm not taking that psychology course. That's of the devil, okay? So God's sense of humor is he makes me a psychologist, okay? But we integrate the biblical stuff. We're not on the psychology side. We're integrating biblical truths, okay? Now, why is it important to have support? Because if you could beat it by yourself, you would have. You can't. Okay, we use the 12 steps. The we part of that is having community. We heal in community. And there's something powerful about having other people who have the same addiction as you, no matter what the addiction, to be able to speak into your life and to call you on the stuff that you need to be called on in a loving way and to call you up and move you forward and to inspire you. Because we have groups in our office, we have many groups, but we also have about 50, 60 phone groups. So anyone who's listening to us can get in a phone group for either the partner betrayal trauma, intimacy anorexia, which is another monster, and then our sexual addiction. And so we got lots of groups going, about 50, 60 a week. And in there, it is so sacred, that's all I can say, is they open up their hearts and they say, this is what's going on with me. This is how I struggled. This was my victory this week. And they encourage one another. They pray with one another. They strengthen one another. They rebuke one another. And that's the kind of community we need to heal and get stronger. Now, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen thousands of men grow up in those groups and become really strong men in their churches, in their community, in their families. And the women heal, and they become incredible. The women say, I'm the way I used to be. Okay, I used to be happy. I used to have energy. I used to be excited about living, and I lost that. And in the group, they begin to heal, and over time, they go, I feel like me again. That's the most common response. And I go, yay! Okay, after the work, you get to feel like you again, and then you can take it from there. So the group is miraculous. There's no short way of doing it. Some healings are process. They're not instantaneous. And just confessing it to your wife, you're not healed. Okay? You just started. And the same with the wife. You need to start the process of healing, because the couples that have the best success are the ones where he does his support group, she does her support group, and they do the marriage recovery exercises together. And that combination over 40 years has been the synergisticness that makes couples heal quicker and get back to their lives, okay? And that is, Rob, insightful, because groups is how it happens. You know, anywhere I want to improve in life, I get people that are better than me around me. And that's no truer than in this particular area.
Such good advice. Oh my gosh. I mean, we do that in all the other areas of our life. And I don't know why we don't consider that when we're addressing pornography addiction. If we want to get stronger and healthier in the gym, we get a coach, we join a gym with a group of people. You know, same thing applies in business. You find mentors that are wiser, have been down the road, you get coaches. It's just amazing to me that we don't apply those same principles in this area, but it's because it's hard, right? It's hard work, and it's not always something that's easy to talk about. So in your work,
it's hard work, but it's way harder to stay sick.
It is.
The women who don't get in the group can take 3 to 5 years to get what a woman gets in 6 months in group.
Wow.
Okay, a man without a group may never heal, which means his wife is going to go through the same cycle again and again. Now that's hard. Sitting in a group of people who love you, that's uncomfortable, Karen. But it's not as hard as having the same nightmare repeat again and again. You don't want your husband to come in and say, honey, we need to talk every 3 years.
So true.
You want a permanent solution where this is not going to happen to me again. Well, if he's not in a group, it's going to happen to you again. It might be a while, but unless he finds out why and how he got this way, he can't unravel that for himself. So when life gets painful again, he's going to go back to binky. And that's what you want to stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. switch gears a little bit. In our culture today, young people just seem to be drowning in this culture of sexuality, and so many are getting trapped in pornography at such a young age. Can talk to us a little bit about really what's happening to these young people as they go through this, and just in terms of their view of relationships and sexuality and all those things that they're going to now carry into adulthood.
It really is a good question. And I would say the first thing to parents is get Covenant Eyes. Just get it. Get it on your phone, so you'd be a good example. Get it on their phone and get it on your TV. Get it on your computers and get it. That's what I tell my clients. So I'm not just promoting you because you're here. If you were in my office, that's what I would tell them to do. Okay? But they're being seduced not by just the sexuality. They're being seduced by technology. There's research that shows that adolescent depression scores have grown over 100% since the iPhone has been introduced into society around the world. It's not America. This research has been done around the world. Depression has gone through the ceiling. Anxiety has gone through the ceiling. And they're having the hugest amount of mental health issues ever known to the world as adolescents. Okay, they're taking pills that we couldn't even imagine growing up. Like, you and I are probably close to the same age, Rob. You got a little more gray than me, but we didn't have a depressed day. Okay, if you had a bad day, you get up and you go to school and do the same thing.
Yeah.
But now, because the dopamine and serotonin, how they're being raised with the pushing of buttons and scrolling, is depleting them and making them feel they've accomplished stuff. So they're being seduced by technology. Now combine that with the power of the human brain's sexual release, which is the highest level of endogenous opiates, which hits the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which for adolescents is not fully developed. And so they're developing with an object relationship sexuality, and they're gluing to it with the highest chemical reward their body has, and they become addicted, physiologically addicted, and it can cause them trouble. I remember there was a huge magazine article about how young men can no longer perform in the sexual arena because of this attachment to the other world. So they're being seduced by technology in general. So I would say parents have a media budget on technology until they get out of high school. Okay? You need to monitor that, and you need to monitor your own. Okay? Have blockers for sure. Have the good conversations you need to have. We have a great DVD called Born for War. We have another one called Princes Take Longer Than Frogs. And we're coming out with a new one, Karen, How to Find Mr. Right. It comes out in a few weeks. It is amazing because I actually tell young women and women who are divorced and women who are widowed, you need to ask these hard questions early on. Okay? And women can kind of tell when men lie, but if you don't ask the questions, you're part of the whole thing of don't ask, don't tell, and then wonder why you got the goods you got. Women need to be smarter today than ever because the addiction and the amount of men that have it is tremendous. And so there are things that they can do, but they need to be smart. The neurological attack on our kids' brains is the first in world history to actually change the adolescent brain. So by the time it gets to adulthood, it's already so addicted to technology, which makes it vulnerable to other addictions because they don't learn how to manage real relationships, which to your point, and they don't know how to manage their internal environment, their emotions. So they're unregulated and unable to attach. And we are allowing this to happen to our kids. And it needs to be taken responsibly instead of just handing your 3-year-old, the phone and say, watch this while I eat my food, right? How many of you have been to a restaurant in the last month?
Yes.
And all 4 of them are on their cell phone.
Always. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And we wonder why our kids don't know how to have relationships. Mm-hmm. So we can do better, I think, as parents and as a church to encourage the reduction of technological stimulation.
Absolutely. Well, kind of taking a pivot, I want to talk a little bit more about Healing Time Ministries. What inspired you to start Healing Time Ministries? And just talk to us a little bit about what that's all about for our listeners that may not be familiar with that.
Sure. Healing Time Ministries airs on Daystar, and Daystar is the largest Christian television network in the world. Okay, they can go to daystar.com, and Healing Times is about talking about issues in the church that don't get talked about. Like what we're doing right now, you haven't heard a sermon on. But I just did a show, actually today, I taped it on the partner betrayal trauma, citing the statistics of trauma and how important it is for the church to get involved with these women so they can get help. I deal with addictions. I've had several shows on lust-free living, on clean, on sexual addiction. And so we're handling topics like the worthy topic, where men and women feel worthless. We've done many shows on marriage and how to cultivate incredibly good marriages. So we are attacking the things where the church is less trained, are less willing to go into those waters. Okay, I've been doing those waters for 40 years. I'm like that river guide. I've been down here. I know where the rocks are, so just stay in the boat with me. But one of the things Healing Time is really, I would say, excellent at, is we are calling people in every church, every viewer on the television around the world. This goes to every nation in the world, okay? And we're encouraging them to start groups where they are in their church for these issues. And we give them the materials, and they can start those groups in their churches. We have groups all over the world doing all kinds of healing, because I honestly believe the church needs to heal before Jesus comes back. It doesn't look like a white and pure church to me right now. We look kind of gray at best, okay?
Yeah.
When 50% of the men are struggling with sexual addiction and a good portion of the pastoral leadership are struggling with sexual addiction, we don't look like the pure bride, but we can be. If every church gets involved in the kind of hospital ministry of dealing with the real issues of people, why not? They're there, and they want to be healed. I don't meet believers who say, well, maybe occasionally, but very rarely does someone want to stay stuck. They want to be free. They want to be healthy. They want to have good marriages. They want to have good parenting skills. We deal with the parent prodigal issues, which, if you got a prodigal, you're a good Christian family, but you got a prodigal, helping parents walk through those issues, how to parent the child that challenges you and the other one, right? So we deal with all these kind of topics because it's a place where I think Healing Time is about equipping the local believer to do local ministry, to see local change and healing. And if we can do that around the world, we can help the church. So that's what Healing Time is about. And they can go to healingtimeministries.com if they were interested in, tracking with any of that or starting a group. That's what we're all about. And I think Covenant Eyes you're on that page, I think, because we want people to get porn blockers. We are an advocate of that. And I just want to say, if you're watching this and you don't have Covenant Eyes, get it. And if you haven't told your people on social media, this is Dr. Doug Weiss. I'm the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. I've written many books, and I'm telling you, get Covenant Eyes, put it on your Facebook and say, did you get Covenant Eyes? And give them a link, okay, so that they can protect their families. And that's a shout out, not coming from you asking me, but for probably over 25 years partnering with you and Ron and knowing how many people you have saved from going down this road. I would like to see that to become everywhere. So that's my personal endorsement of Covenant Eyes, unasked for, unpaid for, unsolicited.
That is so kind of you. Thank you. No, thank you. But thank you. That was awesome and so kind. And, back to your ministry. I mean, my gosh, this is amazing. We need more of that because the church really needs to be the place where people go to find answers, because if they don't get the help and support they need in the church, they're going to go online and they're going to look to the world. And frankly, the world does not have the right answers. So I'm just so grateful for your ministry. Thank you for your work, Dr. Doug.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's way past time overdue that churches lean into dealing with the messy things in church. It's needed.
Well, we're human beings, and so we need human ministry. We need that. And it comes from a biblical point of view. I mean, I got an MDiv as well as marriage and family counseling and PhD in psychology. I mean, I've preached all over the world. This is the Word of God integrated into a way that you can actually do it in the process of healing. Yeah. And that's what's really, really helpful to people.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, Dr. Doug, you mentioned the Healing Time, but what other ways can people get in touch with your resources, or your counseling, heart to heart? And
they can go to drdougweiss.com, and there they'll find if they want to do an intensive, if they want phone counseling, if they need help with materials, they're all there. My office is great, 719-278-3708. All of my staff are very competent in helping people find out what they need, where they are. Maybe they just need some information to start, or maybe they're on the phone crying for a half hour and they need to talk to a counselor that day or a coach. Or maybe they're like, you know what, this is serious. We're doing boot camp. We're coming for 5 days. We're going to do everything we can do because we need to save our marriage, because we have young kids. We have a young family, and we want them to be raised by a mother and a father that not only love each other, but have the tools to be able to stay together for the rest of their life. And that's what we do every week. And when we see more miracles, it's fun, actually, when you see them come in the way they are and see them leave. They're all happy and love each other. And, it's fun.
That's incredible work. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing all the ways to connect with your ministry, your staff. You're so accessible for someone that's got so much going on. You just really put yourself out there, and thank you for doing that.
Well, I've got 3 things to say. For the man who's addicted, I've been free for over 40 years and I've helped thousands of men get free. You can be. You want to get help, get support, and take responsibility to heal yourself, to heal your family. To the woman who's been betrayed, your trauma is legit. You did not cause it. You did not cause it. And you can't cure it. But you do need to heal from the trauma that you have been impacted by. That's your responsibility, and you can. I've seen thousands do that. To the marriages that are being impacted by this, you can heal. There's lots. We have the Intimacy 100-Day book. There's lots of marriage books we have. There's things you can do to heal your marriage so that as you both move forward, you can have really a better marriage than ever. I can't tell you how many thousands of people have either called me or texted me or emailed me and say, Dr. Weiss, I didn't believe our marriage could be better after this, but it's actually better. And here's a picture of our new baby, right? And all this kind of stuff. So there's hope. That's the one word I would give to anyone listening. There's hope, and you deserve to have it, but you might have to work to get it.
Praise God. Thank you for that message of hope to our listeners. And listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Covenant Eyes podcast. I know you have surely been blessed by that, and I encourage you to check out all of Dr. Doug's resources and also his show on Daystar. It is quite amazing. You're going to learn a lot. He is a wise man who's been doing this for quite a while and has a lot to teach and offer. So thank you, Dr. Doug Weiss, for joining us on the Covenant Eyes podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob and Karen. You be blessed.